When I started deconstructing my faith in Christianity a few years ago, I I looked to a lot of different philosophers of the past to help me navigate the world around me. I found that a lot of them really had stuff that resonated with me. And I found myself enjoying going down these different nuanced paths that would take like 14 pages of explanation to define a single sentence. It really helped me see things differently about Christianity, and it helped me recognize some of the problems with religion as a whole. Now, I never got a PhD in philosophy, but Dr. Alex Malpass did. And he has this really cool argument against Christianity, and I like it a lot. Premise one goes, if Christianity is true, then a perfect being exists. Premise two, if a perfect being exists, then Christianity is false. Therefore, Christianity is false. I really think this argument is super solid, but if you think I've missed a glaring error, call us because the show is starting right now. Welcome, everybody. Today is February 25th, 2024, and I am your host, Secular Rarity, and joining me today is our sentient lump of hair, JMike. What's up, brother?
You forgot my Therizinosaurus. I think it's not, AI and stuff. We have to take what we get, but you forgot
is a real photo,
dinosaur.
actually.
This is a real dinosaur of me traveling along with my tamed dinosaur. But yeah, no, we're going to introduce a third guest. So I know we'll break our guest rules or whatever here, but we have a guest.
We needed it. We had been, the number one criticism we have received in about 27 years is that we don't have enough dinosaurs on the show. So for all of you out there that have been writing to us and calling us out, we have now fixed that problem, and you are welcome. No other problems, though, actually. We've never gotten criticism on anything else.
Yeah.
But before we go much further, what do you think about that, JMike? You and I love the philosophy stuff. We love to play in this playground. What do you think about that argument from Dr. Malpass?
Yeah, there's a lot of unpacking with it, but yeah, I mean, it's something that you hear just the premises and you're kind of like, okay, I need a little bit more meat on the bone. What can you give me here? And I mean, I enjoy it for the sake of justice and mercy and those types of concepts are heavily constitutive of Christian talk or apologists, right? Defense of the faith. And so this puts a really good light on, which we've talked on some previous shows, that if I was to commit some horrible crime and then say secular stepped in and was just like, hey, I'll just take your sentence for you. You go on and do your thing. And from that point on, everything's good. Justice is served. But a lot of us are going to point out pretty quickly that we don't feel like any justice has been done if the person that committed this crime gets away. But, they insist. But someone is, taking the place of such a crime in order for us to get to the good that we need. And that's going to be heavily constitutive of the perfect being concept that's, heavily laden in Christianity and the kind of dirty rags that we are and the sin that's just been put on me. I don't know about you, Secular. I didn't choose to live. I didn't sign up for it. It wasn't here's your option. You exist now. Do you want to exist still? There's none of that for me. But I was placed, I was a dirty rag, and I was placed with this, horrible thing that happened with one of my ancestors, thanks. And from that point, do we get any kind of justice, from any kind of atonement further down the line? Should it have been deserved that I am to take this sentence on from somebody else, something that I didn't ask for? And that if that concept is going to be constitutive of something like perfection, and that's the concept in the Christian realm, that, we won't paint all Christians with a brush. I'll leave some open to defend, different nuances since there's not very much agreement. But it's very clear there that concept is just on its face not perfect, right? Yeah. And so Christianity is going to be false given that analysis. I don't think I did a really good representation there, giving the ins and outs. But it is, if someone is interested, I would highly suggest kind of looking at the blog post and further discussions with Malpass on that, because I think it's very simple, but also It's one of those like, oh, yeah, I think I've been thinking that, but this makes a lot more sense the way you've expressed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up some of the true depth to this argument, because it absolutely has this whole facet of what it means to be perfect, and what the common sense of justice is, what is that perfect sense of justice, is this that's presented to us in the Bible actually that the sin, the fallen world, all of that stuff. It has all of that entailed with it, but it's presented so simply. Like you said, it just feels really, really easy right on the face of it. I'm sure there is a Christian out there that disagrees with that conclusion. I know there has to be, JMike. So I am really, really hoping that they give us a call.
Bet most of them, if not all, are going to have an issue. But I think this is a really good thing that highlights like the success of arguments or lack of success of arguments. Is like I just don't buy into this idea that like this argument's going to come over the mountaintop and just pummel someone into submission, like God doesn't exist or God exists. I don't think like that tool is available. I think a lot of people are catching arguments like Pokemon and like, let's go cast it out in a in a debate scenario, which can be good and can be bad, depending on the intent behind it. But when you kind of, I mean, I don't think that unless you get agreement, I guess I'll put it this way, unless you get like, do you accept this premise, that premise, this premise? Okay, those you accept A, B, and C. Those are part of your view. Great. Have you noticed this thing D that is entailed by A, B, and C? No, I haven't. Okay, well, that either gives you some work to do. You can just dispute the kind of entailment that I'm making, or you go, shit, I have a contradiction here. I need to give up my view or one of these statements that I accepted. And that's why I like these types of arguments. Is it's like, okay, well, let's go through these premises and we'll give like a little sub argument to help define it. You accept this, that, and that? Yeah, I do. Okay, well then the conclusion just falls out for free for me. And those arguments like reductios or things where you're taking things that somebody accepts are massively successful. But when you do it on the other end, like kind of like, here's why God doesn't exist, here's a bunch of statements that you probably don't already accept, it doesn't matter that you dress it up as like premise, conclusion, because they're not going to, pick whatever claim, they're not going to accept it. And so this is, I think, a good example of one of those things that takes in consideration what somebody accepts and the consequences of accepting those things.
Yep, I totally agree. And if you out there watching right now live want JMike and I to keep talking about philosophy this entire episode, well, there's an easy way to do it. You just call in either over the phone or online. And if on the flip side, you out there watching right now don't want JMike and I to talk about philosophy anymore, if you're already pulling your hair out and saying, oh my gosh, shut up, you also should call in, because then we'd take your call and we wouldn't talk about it. So, but before we grab those calls, which we do have some wonderful calls already, I'm going to tell you a couple of cool things, and we're going to talk about the question of the week from last week. But if you didn't already know, the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And in case you didn't hear what I just said, we've got lines open, and we'll talk about any of that and more. But before we grab that call, I'm going to tell you about last week's results for the Share Your Experience question of the week. So last week, we asked you to complete this sentence. It's a bad idea to blank at church. I feel like we are just asking for it with this one. But here we go. Number 3, Lance Gaveir. I probably said that wrong, Lance. It is a bad thing to be fruitful and multiply at church. I feel like I've seen a video or two like that in the past, but I don't think we can link it. I think it might.
A commandment, though.
Yes. God didn't specify where, right? He did say do the fruitful and multiply thing. He never specifically was like, but not here. Yeah. Like, don't do it in the pews.
You'd think an all-knowing being would be able to see all the avenues you can go.
Oh my gosh. It's obviously not the best commandment. Number 2 from Feffy's Cottage, question of the week. It's a bad idea to abruptly and loudly yell about donkey dongs and horse jizz during the sermon at church. Yeah, I would agree.
I know from experience. Yeah,
I was gonna say, this felt as if it was coming from a place of experience. So thank you so much for that, Feffy's.
That's how I wound up here. They just wouldn't accept me anymore.
They wouldn't. Yeah, it's weird, but
with the filthy
for some
atheists.
reason, some reason why. You know what? That's why we get the bad name. It's because the last time they talked to us was when we were yelling about donkey dongs and horse jizz at church. That's okay. I see it now, guys. I kind of see it now. Number 1 from Brinstar Media 1411. Something bad to do at church: getting on your knees and accept the Lord inside of you until he fills you up with the Holy Spirit. Yeah, I don't know. That just
those are all winners. I think.
Seriously,
all ones, I think.
We really have a wonderful community here, and I really think those comments solidifies that. So yeah, but we're not done with that one, guys. We have another one for this week, and I am actually going to throw it to JMike first. JMike, name a time God had no chill.
A time that Daddy had no chill. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to come at me with like pitchforks here, because this is like a pretty stock. It almost seems like, oh, you didn't like, did you could have gone away for a little bit and thought about this? And I did. But this one just always comes back to me. And I thought in my head, like, maybe there's just people out of here like myself at one point who are we're just unaware of this verse. But I go to it a lot and often, and I think I'll go to it to my deathbed. But go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and women, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. 1 Samuel 15:3. I think Daddy had no chill when he decided, hey, you know what, those infants? Yeah. No value. Get rid of them. Gone.
Is that
Praise
the one?
be me, I am an awesome God, I reign. Sorry.
Is that the time? Is that the story about God commanding slaughter where they didn't slaughter well enough the first time, and so he had to punish them? Or is that another time that God? Because it happens a couple of times, you know.
Well, I don't know if you know the central theme of the Old Testament, but God fails a lot. It's just like a ballad of failure. So.
Weird.
You know, I get kind of confused as well.
Yeah. But then suddenly God is perfect and all powerful, but God doesn't change, JMike, and it's wait, I'm seeing problems with this.
The immutability thing only really matters when it's convenient, I think.
I get it. God's always been what he is until not. Right.
And then look, all you need is sprinkle a little philosophy on it, and you can take immutability to every end possible on the spectrum, and you can still call it immutable. So,
well, sounds good to me. And I think that was a very good answer. It absolutely, God had no chill in that moment. I mean, he really could have come up with 1,000 other options, but apparently, nope. Slaughtering the babies was the correct one, the perfect one. But hey, you've got an answer. I'm sure you do out there, you wonderful viewer listening either now live or on the replay. And so what I'm going to ask is a very simple request. Take that answer and type it out in the comment section below this video, because we might pick yours and we might read it out, and we might show the world how awesome you are, like those three people were today. So yeah. You guys won for the next week, and you can walk around telling everybody in your life how badass you are because your comment got chosen. And then, everybody else can try harder for next week. That was rude. That probably is. I didn't mean that, you guys. You're all great. We do have some calls filling up. But again, if you've got something to say, maybe you think there's a good reason to believe in God. Maybe you think there's something maybe God's not real, but like there's something good that religion provides, and you want to keep that around, give us a call. JMike and I are ready to talk about it, and we are going to start with Atheist Jeff. He, him pronouns. Wants to talk about his belief in God. So hey, Jeff, you're on with JMike and Secular Rarity. What is up?
Hey, good morning or afternoon, JMike and Secularity.
Secular Rarity, but SR or
That's
just that guy.
That's what I'm gonna call him from now on.
That's pretty creative. That's pretty creative. Yeah, I usually go by outrageous, and that I just use the letters in my name, but it says outrageous. So anyhow, it's nice to meet you guys, and yeah, I believe in Jesus. He's my Lord and Savior.
Sweet. Yeah. Why? I guess that's always kind of our little thing here is, what do you believe? And then why do you believe that? And so, yeah, you say you believe in Jesus. I mean, we could unpack that a little bit, Jeff, but honestly, I want to get to, what led you to that belief? What led you to that conclusion that Jesus is even worth believing in, quote unquote,
Okay. Well, I guess I could just tell you my experience. I was 18 years old. I was in Hacienda Heights, California. I missed a couple credits on my high school diploma, so I had to go to this extra class. And I was down in this other school, and it was on Sigmund down in Hacienda Heights. And I was walking through the field, and I think it's now like apartment complexes or something. But anyhow, I'm walking back to my house on Wedgeworth, and I felt weird, and I floated above my body, and then I re-entered into my body, and I instantly knew who God was. I finished walking home about maybe 3/4 of a mile, maybe a mile away, and a man, his name's Brian Martinez, he was in my driveway, and I hadn't seen him in 3 years. When I moved to Hacienda Heights, I jumped in his backyard, and he pushed me, and we kind of fought because, I'm in his backyard. And so that's how we met. That's how we met as kids. Well, then later on, we're in high school now. Hadn't seen him in 3 years. He's in my driveway at the same time. And I said, hey, Brian, what are you doing? He said, hey, get in. And he said, I asked him, where are we going? He said, we're going to church. And on that day, I worshiped the Lord Jesus Christ.
What if he had taken you to like a
first experience?
What if he took you to a Quran? If he took you to a mosque, do you think you would like accept that? I'm curious.
Would you be a Muslim instead, Jeff?
No, maybe not a Muslim. Like if Jesus told me to be a Muslim, maybe. Yeah. If he led me to that, maybe. But from what I understand, but I think again, you got to remember gifts. That's another thing you guys are kind of tripping up on. But that's it's gifts in 1 Corinthians 12. So like if we were on a football team, you'd be the quarterback, I'd be the center, and then someone has to be the wide receiver. And none of us can play the same position at all. And that's how God uses people.
So what does that have to do with your story? Because normally when I hear the term gifts being brought up in a specifically Christian context, it's more or less referring to extra natural abilities, if you will. Like the gift of discernment is often presented as the ability for a believer in Christ to essentially be a human lie detector, right? Is that what you mean by gifts?
That's correct.
Okay, so what did that have to do with? Are you just saying like the guy that took you to church just maybe had one of those gifts and was able to realize that you were in a particularly susceptible state, or not susceptible? I guess that maybe sounds a little pejorative, more accepting state or something? Like, I guess I'm just a little confused as to why from that experience that would give you credence to believe that like Jesus Christ is the Son of God, or rose from the dead, or just any of them like important theological things about Christianity, I guess. It just sounds like you had a cool time with a buddy and went to church.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had it was a spiritual moment. I mean, God was walking with me, and he was showing me his love. And that was the way he did it for me. And he will do it.
But I think what Secular is wanting to know is, but I think what secular is wanting to know is like, so when you like, there's content, right? We understand the content of the experience. And a lot of people express that they have this experience and then they tell us the content of that experience, whether it be Jesus or Muhammad or whatever. But we want to, like, we can just, there's really little that me and secular can do since we weren't there, and Revelation's necessarily like a first person thing. There's not very much we can do in the experience. We can kind of look at it and go, yeah, it sounds like you went to church and you did this. You're the only one that knows really what happened to you in that situation. But I think what secular wants to know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, secular, is that we have the content, but how do you know like any of that content is true, right? Like
Correct.
Jesus rose from the dead, or paid a price for our sins, or any of that stuff, because like it's not a mystery that content can just pop in your head. There's like nothing spectacular about that. That's not to diminish your experience in any way. It's just that that's really all we have to go to. We both don't have those types of experiences. And so what we want to know is, can the content of that experience be justified in any way? Can we give just, and I think secular put it a really good way, like talking about just credence that you have to believe it in the first place. But I don't think just having the content in your head warrants this credence that you should have believed that it's true. Because I have content that pops in my head all the time, but there's still this open question, is that true? And so we want to know what like method, what like further investigation, what methodology did you do in order to like, yeah, I'm pretty confident that that experience is the reality that I live in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he revealed with love. I mean, that's, of course, I mean, anybody who wants to show you that he cares about you and he's honest, he's going to show love. And that's what he did.
How did,
I found,
how?
I've,
Yeah, hang on just a second, Jeff. Hang on, because I don't want to get too far away from the point that you're making.
Yeah,
because I want to dig in on it because it's important. If you, Jeff, if you're talking, you can't listen very well. If you string off 12 different things just without letting us understand what you're saying, then we're not actually making any progress. Like truly, JMike and I are here trying to, metal sharpening metal, right? Like we believe that the justification that we have for not accepting these types of stories is pretty robust. And we would love it for somebody to be able to demonstrate to us like, hey, actually, you're missing this really big hole right here. And so we have to go step by step. It has to be a slow process, because otherwise there's no clarity actually, being presented for either of us. So when you say like he demonstrated through love, like that, I know what each of those words individually means, but when you put them together like that, there is no concept that comes to my mind. Exactly. And so I'm wondering, well, how? Like, what happened? Like, what does that concept mean for you when you say it so casually like that? That'd be really helpful for us to understand.
And I'm in the exact same position of inquiry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you guys want to talk about celery, but I keep trying to tell you that it's lettuce, and you're like, no, we're talking about celery, and I'm like, no,
right.
It's about
That's not what we're doing though. Look, seculars put it a really like, no, hold on. You gotta understand. First off, there's one thing you gotta understand. There's a show we're running, and so it's kind of tough shit if we decide to kind of stop you at a place for clarity. It's just clarificatory. It's not like we want to get you right there. It's that when you go on like a bunch of sentences, it's really hard for us to go, okay, what was the last point that he said? Because he said this last thing at the end that sounded very interesting, but we set this up at a very specific point, right? Which is, what's the methodology such that it justifies the content in your head that you think you had some experience or that Jesus is the Son of God? And your response was talking about, well, he shows love. One, that assumes the truth of that. We're asking how we know it's true. When you make the statement like, well, he shows love, or he right there, when you started like the first word in the sentence, assumes the truth of Christianity, assumes the truth of your God. We can't just skip over that part and then let you go on, 12 more sentences, because the very first word that you said presupposed the truth of Christianity. So one, we don't even know what you mean by that. Like it might be incoherent depending on how you tell us what you mean. But two, you presuppose the truth of Christianity, and we want to know how we get to the truth of Christianity, right? Make us Christians. You can't just start out with Christianity being true.
Okay. Yeah, I hope when I start talking, I can say more than 3 sentences. So I'm going to go ahead and try.
Yeah, that's fine. Just go ahead and give the methodology, and we'll only interrupt if you veer. That's it.
Okay, in John chapter 3, Jesus said God is spirit, and then Jesus also said in the Bible that God the Father cannot be seen. Only he has seen the Father. So now it's impossible to see the Father. Okay, so now if you're going to try to be a Christian, your heart has to change. You do not listen to a sentence so that you can smash it to the ground.
That's not what it is. We're looking for clarification.
Yeah.
So now,
Which, by the way, our hearts pump blood, so I'm not even really sure what you mean there either.
You guys have no ability to be respectful yourself.
Jeff,
the second
this whole time, I've been very respectful. I've been interested. I desperately am trying to get some clarification. If you ask me what my favorite flavor of ice cream is, and I proceed to talk to you about the various vehicles that I've owned and driven over the years, like I had a Dodge Caravan once. It was gold. I played drums, and I would often put all of my drums in my Dodge Caravan. See, I'm not answering the question about the ice cream, which is what you asked me. And so we're not making any progress in the conversation. And so what you just said right there, for instance, didn't seem to address the question that JMike and I had both posed. Okay. So I'd like to try to focus back to it. Like we're not hearing some gotcha, man. I'm not interested in making anybody look foolish. I'm interested truly in just having these conversations and learning more and understanding more. I count it as a victory if you and I just both go away just going, gosh, I know where they're coming from a bit more now, you know? So like, that's really all I'm going for. And when you say, hey, the reason I know God exists is because God demonstrated his love to me. And then I go, oh gosh, I'm not really sure what you mean by that. And you go, well, in John chapter whatever, it says you can't see God. That to me doesn't feel like it's addressing what I was confused about. So I'd like to go back to that if we can, and just try to focus on when you say the phrase, like God demonstrated his love to you, what does that mean to you? What is actually going on that I can help with? Oh, it looks like Jeff left. Well,
oh, sorry, I was playing drums. I wasn't paying attention.
That's okay. No, it's okay. Maybe this was not the right day. Maybe Jeff did not have a good answer. Maybe there was a connection issue. You know what? I'm not going to say it was all on Jeff. It could have just been technology. But I think the point we were making, JMike, is really one that is overlooked and even sometimes looked down upon in these conversations. Everybody wants to get to the meat of it. Everybody wants to get right to the, you're God's stupid, man, you know, or the, you atheists don't have anything to make you happy, man. And it's like, I get really frustrated because it so often feels like two ships passing in the night. Neither one of them sees each other. Neither one of them engages back and forth with the other. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they're just both blowing their frickin' horns to nobody.
And you know, it's a non-answer when you start the answer. When I'm asking a question about methodology to, like, I don't know, raise the credence that it could be true. I'm not saying prove it, just raise the, probability that it's true, or raise credence on your own personal belief, right? Which is one other thing to think about. When you say a sentence like, well, you started it out and you just like, I don't have to listen to anything that you have to say. You assume the truth of your position. And my entire inquiry was, how do we get to the truth of that position? Right. And so it's not like, I think out of left field to put somebody back on the tracks, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you too. And Jeff, if you are still watching live or you check this out on the replay, please, seriously, call us back. Call us back, man. We're not trying to be dicks. We're not trying to over talk or anything, but we do have to get clarity. And that's for our sake just as much as it is yours. If you're trying to present an argument and it's not coming across clear, you're never going to go anywhere, because the other guy just really doesn't know what the fuck you're saying.
Wait till you like have some conversations with people who really like philosophy and they get you on every bit of your term usage,
every single word.
So there's gradients to this where it's excessive and we're not. Hey, I just need to understand what you mean. Right.
But before we grab another caller, I am going to read some of these awesome super chats that we have gotten. We got $5 from Rainbow Wolf saying, the apologist has lost when they have to resort to whataboutisms, faith, threats of hell, or you have faith in the past /science BS. Yeah, I think that is often a good, when the ad hominems come out, you're probably on the right track. Dominique Cullen.
If by faith in science, you mean like science is awesome, then yeah.
I have faith that science is badass. But Dominique Cullen gave us $5 saying, I love you both so much. You both have opened my eyes to logical thinking and given me the vocab to combat stupidity. Have a great show. Thank you so much, Dominique. I know that means a lot to both of us. We've got $20 from Greg Morrison saying, why don't atheists mention the second set of 10 commandments more often? Exodus 34:1, Moses smashed the first set. Yeah, that is really, that's not a bad point. I give it to you on that, Greg. Like that is one of those
13.
It's one of those weird things in Christianity that it's like, hey, this is actually part of your, I guess Judaism too, right? But like, it's just this odd bit of story that's just weird to kind of reconcile. I feel like I don't feel like it ultimately disproves, God's existence or disproves, Moses' existence. I think most people in that field now consider Moses to be a mythological character. But it is. It's just one of those odd little stories. Yeah, no, myth. Yeah, myth. I know. Crazy to think about. But they used to make up people and write books about them a long time ago. It's not just a modern thing, guys. Yeah, I know. We've got another $5 super chat from Miranda Rensberger, who has also been a member for 1 month, saying, can someone please tell me what the Amalekite livestock did to offend God? Yeah, I mean, poor cows and goats, did absolutely nothing, just living their lives, chomping on grass. And the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, go kill them too. They evil cows. Let's be honest. It's a possibility.
They were mooing just a little too loud.
Kept God up at night. And then finally, we have from Quantum Answer, who has actually been a member for 2 years, just did something super cool, which Quantum Answer just gifted 10 freaking Atheist Experience memberships to our wonderful, wonderful audience right now. So, hey, if you got one of those memberships, first off, thank Quantum Answer, because that is a wonderful thing for them to do. And then just spam the chat with emojis. I think JMike's face is down there. My face is down there. Just fill up the chat with just indiscriminate hair, because that's mostly what it is,
They're so small you wouldn't be able to tell.
You can't tell the difference, honestly. It's just both of us, just fuzz. And then real quick, we will be going to you, George, in just a second. But we got one more super chat, $5 from Isaiah S, saying, if Jesus evolved from a Virgin Mary, why are there still virgins named Mary? Gosh, Isaiah, I gotta say that is checkmate Christianity. I don't know, George. I don't know if you want to come on after that. That was pretty intense, man. No, we are going to bring you on. We're going out to Texas. Him, George is a theist and wants to talk about historical evidence. Hey, George, you're chatting with SR and JMike.
Hello.
Hey.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah, please go for it.
Yeah. So can you see the chat right now?
The live chat?
I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it either. So
sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it currently. I guess I could go through some effort to pull it up, but probably whatever you're gonna say or do is possible without us doing it. But no, neither of us can currently see it. Why? What's up?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, shit.
That's okay.
Bye, I guess.
All right. Well, that was not much historical evidence. Yeah, the call just dropped there.
Yeah. Call screener had historical evidence for Jesus. We got nothing. So what does that mean, everybody?
Ooh, burn! No historical evidence for Jesus. No, I don't know. It could have been some trolly thing.
You know what's funny about that mythicist? I had ran into a famous mythicist not that long ago. We had a little chat about it. It was an interesting conversation. Two atheists disagreeing at slightly different levels. So
yeah, and I think it's an interesting. I think that the mythicism conversation around Jesus is interesting. I also kind of feel like ultimately it does not matter. It doesn't matter to believing Christians. It doesn't matter to non-believers, because if Jesus was just a dude, right, a historical dude that says nothing for the divinity claims and the supernatural junk, and if Jesus wasn't a dude, wasn't a real flesh and blood person, it says nothing for the millions of believers and the theology that has been built up around it. Like all the things can still stand exactly as they are.
And I think even when you accept the historicity of Jesus, you, especially with, I've probably expressed this way too many times on the show, but the apocalyptic view that I'm very fond of, that I think is best supported, you can do as much damage to the view, accepting that Jesus existed and the entailments from that as you can without it. You can be a mythicist and still run this. Well, if Jesus existed, he's a failed apocalyptic preacher, so I don't really see how this is beneficial in either way. We go.
Right. I agree. And we are going to grab another call. But before we do, I'm going to tell you guys to like the video. I know there's a lot of channels out there asking for your love, and you're spread thin, and I get it. But we are pretty awesome, and I think we deserve that like. I think we deserve it. So do it. We're just gonna stop the whole show until you do it. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah, John. I mean you, bro. Like, click it right now. I'm not. Don't pretend. Okay, he did it.
Some atheist John just had.
I know.
It's just like, all right, I'm doing it.
He's getting ready to, and he was like, maybe not. But yeah, subscribe to the channel already, and all the other wonderful ACA channels. Do the bell and comment below. Tell us your answer to that question of the week, or just tell us why you don't like me and JMike. Like, we're comfortable with that. There was actually an email that came through that said, I'm a terrible host, and maybe we'll read that. I thought it was kind of funny. I got to read it right before the show. But
I'd hang that stuff up on my wall. I get a kick out of that stuff. It's great.
It is. It's really good. It's like, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I've always felt how good you're doing by the amount of haters around you. It's nice to have a couple.
And then I'm really successful then. In that case.
You're crushing it, brother. You're crushing it. How many TikTok accounts has been banned for you or whatever? Anyway.
A lot. Yeah.
Okay, before we go too much further off the rails, we are going to go out to Virginia. We've got Ali, is a theist, no pronouns given, and wants to talk to us about common sense and God's existence. So what's up, Ali? You were on AXP with JMike and SR.
Yeah, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you pretty good. I'm doing all right.
Sorry, just give me like 5 seconds. Let me just...
All right, I will count to 5, but just quietly in my head. I feel like I'm close.
Luckily, the producers made a 5-second clock button for this.
No.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, Ollie.
Yeah, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Okay. So I wanted to basically start with a question. The atheists usually commonly ask for us to prove that God exists, but I wanted to start with, can you prove that you exist? How would you prove
No, can't. Moved on.
You can't prove that you exist?
Nope, it's one of the foundational assumptions we all have to adhere to. If you have a way around that, go for it. I'd love to hear it. If you're going to tell me that God answers that question, then that I'm going to tell you that that's just either an extra assumption that you start with and I don't have, meaning I win that game, or I'm going to tell you that ultimately the baggage that is entailed by that viewpoint is contradictory with the other things that we
Yeah, and
all
I don't.
Let me
Yeah, and real,
hang
real
on
quick.
just a second, Ollie.
Yeah,
Hang on
real
just a second,
quick,
Ollie.
go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't like this phrasing of prove. I don't like when atheists go
Yeah.
up to somebody and even say prove God exists. I think that's just like that's not really fair sport. I don't think what we do in our lives is I'm gonna prove to my mother I had eggs for breakfast, or we don't do this type of stuff. What we do is really give kind of like an inference to the best explanation or inductive assessments. And I think like yeah, I would answer the same way. I don't think there's a deductive proof I could give you that there couldn't exist counter examples or arguments to show why the premises would be like have an undercutting defeater. But what you can do to justify the view that I exist is I can compare the available views, right? A view where I have like neural processing and there's a tree in front of me, and that there's like a necessary type of relation between the kind of neural activity in the external world and what's being furnished or represented by my mental content. And then we can compare that to a view where like I'm a brain in a vat, or there's like some Cartesian demon. And for each one of those experiences, we don't get, just real quick, we don't get this kind of necessary like relationship between the neural activity. Like, for example, if I see a clown in the bush that no one else sees, we can explain that by like some deficiency in the processing of my brain and why other people cannot see it and why I can. But in a view where like, I'm just a brain in a vat or something like that, every single experience you have is contingent, meaning it could be something else, right? It could fail to be that thing and something else, but you don't get explanation for why you're experiencing that particular tree as opposed to a clown in the bush, right? And you can try to like funnel this back to like, well, the brain in the vat is feeding you that, but why is the brain in the vat feeding you that experience rather than any other experience? And so when you compare the views, one has less commitments and has more explanatory power. I have less commitments, or I have more explanatory power with the necessary relationship between like the neural firing in my brains, as opposed to like I have no explanation for why I'm experiencing the tree that's being fed to me, as opposed to like a chicken in front of me. That view loses out on explanatory virtues. And so we shouldn't favor that view over a view where there's very real neural activity and very real external world stimuli. All of that is just going to make for less commitments and better explanation. And so we can provide justification for why we're not brains in a vat, but you don't have to prove it. That's ridiculous and that's stupid.
JMike and I are really, really very much on the same page on this one, I think. But yeah, I know that was a lot, Ollie. So go ahead, give us your thoughts on that.
Okay, let me re-ask that. Do you exist?
Yes.
Yes.
And I gave you my justification for it.
Right.
I just gave you. I don't want to bore the audience again. I gave you the justification. No. Yeah, but I gave you the justification, but I'm not proving. I'm not giving you a deductive argument.
Right.
Right. That's nonsense. I wouldn't do that.
So, are you certain that you exist?
Yeah, I have a high credence that I exist. Very high credence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 1 minus epsilon. Yeah. It's the same confidence I have that God does not exist.
Yeah, and if you're going to go down a route of saying, but you can't be 100%, oh my goodness, solid, certain. Like JMike and I not only have already accepted that, right? But we've shown you like why. We've said like this is the reason why we accept that, right? And we're very comfortable with that. And all of the stuff that we're talking about on our end for how we get to conclusions about stuff, one of which being that God doesn't exist, all of that kind of takes account for that lack of that 100% solid certainty. So that isn't a problem in our view.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that Ollie, you understand the justification that I provided. So what I want you to do before we continue with your inquiry is I want you to steel man what my justification was.
That would be really helpful if you could just shout back to JMike what he told you his justification is for
And here's why I'm not letting you finish, Ali,
what's
because Ali, this is why I'm being probably difficult towards you. You keep using the word prove, and I just want to shut you up the second you say that. Don't, like, that's not the term usage that I'm using, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a concession of like, do you have a deductive argument? Well, no, because that's not my project. I don't think that project is successful. But I did offer you a different project, a worldview comparison project, where we compare the commitments of the views and the explanatory breadth and depth that we get out of them. So I want you to just steel man back to me my justification for why I exist.
No, but why do I have to go by what you?
Because I want to see if you understand the words that came out of my mouth.
Right.
I got what you're trying to. You're basically trying.
Okay, then prove to me that you did.
Yeah.
But I'm the one who called in. So let me ask.
Yeah, but you called into our show, man. I muted you for a second. Okay, look, Ali, truly, and we said this to Jeff earlier, and we mean this, okay? And I think there's enough video evidence of both JMike and I, on this show and others to demonstrate we mean this, which is we are truly interested in understanding your point. We are not just here to go, haha, your God's dumb, stop being a Christian, live your life better, I'm smart. That would not really be a good show and would be a waste of time for JMike and I. We'd probably just rather go have a beer and just chat about, the universe and shit. So truly, we are excited that you called and said, hey, look, guys, I think believing in God is common sense. Makes sense that God exists. JMike and I go, fantastic. Tell us what you mean by that. And that's really all we're trying to get to. And so when you brought up this, really good question that pokes a massive hole in our worldview, right? You said, you can't prove you exist. Our response was, oh, actually, thanks for bringing this up. That's not actually a hole in our worldview. We have ways of accounting for that. And if you now continue for the rest of the conversation to just level that accusation at us again and again and again, we don't go anywhere. And we'd like to go somewhere. So I'm going to unmute you here in just a second.
There's a difference between deductive, abductive, and inductive reasoning. And it's not just deductive reasoning. So please, read about reasoning just one time.
Okay. Side note that I'm not a Christian, I'm a Muslim, but okay, anyway, continuing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Back to the
My mistake.
Back to the point.
It was that you were going to steel man my justification.
Yes. Can you real quick? And if you need him to shout it back again, we can do that again. But if you can,
that would be good because I kind of forgot.
So I'm that's what my prediction was. I made a hypothesis that you weren't listening, and I think that it was forthcoming in my prediction. So I gave you an analysis for justification. Justification doesn't mean deductive proof, right? Science isn't going around giving deductive arguments to other scientists. Like, here's premise 1 for the RNA world hypothesis. Here's premise 2. That's just not how scientists, find out the world. We use deductive reasoning like mathematics, right? We use this type of stuff, but there's inductive assessments, there's abductive, and I'm giving you an abductive assessment. I'm telling you, look, all of us could just have no decision on the worldview we take. Do I exist? Do I not exist? Well, let's take 2 views, right? A mind-brain identity theory view, which is one that I'm sympathetic towards, where mind just is the neural activity or the neural processing that's going on, right? And from that view, I have a very specific relationship when I see a tree. There's an external world that feeds me representations of how the world is. That's one view that we can compare to another view where there's just something feeding me experiences. And we have this question: why am I seeing a tree rather than anything else? Well, in the world where there's an external world, there's actually a tree. There's actual neural processing. I have a full explanation on the data, a necessary relationship between the neural activity and then the external stimuli. On the other view, we ask this question: why am I seeing a tree rather than not a tree? And we don't get an explanation because it's brute. It could have fed me the experience of eating a mac and cheese, right? It's all available. And in that view, we can't explain any experience further than just the brute fact of having them. Now, that to me is a philosophical cost. It's a vice. You're paying this price for this view that gets you no explanatory power, whereas the view that I'm offering fully explains with less commitments why we experience a tree or why I have some deficiency and see a clown that nobody else sees, right? Now, to me, that's justification. One view is less complicated, it's simpler, less commitments, and it explains the data. The other view can't explain any single experience that you have. So we should not opt for that view. Now, that's justification in my book. Do you agree with me or do you not agree with me, and why?
No, I don't agree with you because, so when it comes to atheism, these principles you guys lay down.
I said nothing about atheism.
No, or atheist, whatever, atheists in general.
So let me look, Ali, it's hard not to interrupt you when I went through this analysis 2 times, not 1, 2 times. And all you did was say, I'm going to be disrespectful and not listen to you and not do the thing that Mike asked you to, which is to steel man it, right? So now you just want to go on to you atheists. When did I even use the word atheist?
Okay, well, you are an atheist, right?
Yeah, and you have very bad reasoning or bad listening skills, right?
Okay, let me just get back to my point. All that you...
Yeah, it'd be better for you two so that you stop digging yourself a hole. So I will allow that.
Yeah. Let's try for a few minutes.
Okay, can I go? Can I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I will lift you out of the hole you've dug yourself in. Go ahead.
These principles or crazy like standards you lay down, why don't you apply them in the real life?
Oh, JMike. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Ali. I'm glad you said that. I think, Ali, the reason I'm cutting in right now is to say, you know what? You got us. You got us. That question right there is beautiful. You said, SR, JMike, you some bitches aren't consistent. You have this crazy high standard of wanting explanatory power without all of these contradictory things later on. JMike, let me ask you directly.
Whoa.
Do you use this level of scrutiny and skepticism for other things than just God in your life? Like, if I were to tell you that I owned 3 different Bugattis because of how alpha and badass I am.
Oh, I just accept that prima facie. Just on first glance. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, so I want to be sarcastic, but no, this is clearly not the case. Like, and by the way, let me extend this to you, Ali. I am not someone that says, prove your God exists. If someone makes the claim, they can prove. They can use deductive reasoning to generate a conclusion that God exists. I'm all bored on hearing that. What I said at the beginning of the show is I'm skeptical on both sides providing such an argument. Now, the best argument that I think exists for God, for God, for like in a naturalistic view or atheistic view, or even for God, if someone wants to use it, is doing this type of worldview comparison. Mainly because when you lay out arguments, one of those sentences or premises that you have might assume the falsity of your interlocutor's view, right? And so it's a better way just to go, hey, what data do we agree upon? Right? We agree there's a beginning of the universe. Okay, great. What best explains that? Naturalism or not? Now, on your view, if you just wanted to tell me, hey, I can't prove God's existence, that's not my view. My view is that I have a really high credence and really good justification, and I do this worldview comparison. Naturalism is simpler. You posit less stuff than I do, but you miss out on explanatory power. Without God, you can't explain this stuff around you. Now, I'd be very interested in that conversation. That would be a conversation that could lead me towards theism because I don't have that high standard for theists. I have a standard of just, hey, give me what you think is just justificatory for the belief. And if it's this same type of worldview comparison, great. I buy into that game. We're both playing chess, right? I just think I'm going to beat you at chess. That's it.
Okay. Are you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll
give you one last shot.
I don't know. I don't know if it mattered what I said, other than to the audience.
No, because I feel like I really do. I feel like at this point, truly, the most beneficial thing, Ollie, would be to just go back and rewatch this, because if you were paying attention, you would have noticed that the last minute or two was actually JMike helping you strengthen your argument. He was giving you really good tools to utilize to help make your argument more sound and bust.
Okay. Anyway,
Uh,
before we get there, can I ask you one?
He wants to move
Sure.
on to the thing he wants to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. We'll give you a few seconds. We'll see if it goes anywhere. I've got other calls I'm already interested in, but because I think you've demonstrated that you're not really engaging in this conversation, but that's okay. So go ahead, say your thing, Ali. We'll see how long we entertain it.
Okay. Do you both sincerely? I want you to both answer this. Do you want God to exist?
I don't
really-
have a
really care.
preference one way or the other.
Yeah, I just care about what's true.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me about wanting God or not. Like
For
that's
certain
not
gods,
the
I
issue.
do not want to exist.
Oh,
for
sure. Yeah. There's some versions of them, that are like, oh no, they'd be like torturing me constantly. But there are other versions of a God that it's like, yeah, sure, I guess that thing would be nice if it existed, and that'd be cool. But again, like it's not a desire one way or the other for me. I don't have a preference. It's a matter of whether or not there is good reason to accept that it does exist.
Yeah, if the question is like just on general theism, Ollie, like, how do you feel about a mind that exists alone that creates all the external world? I'm indifferent. I don't really care.
Yep.
I just don't think it's true. I don't think there's good reason to believe it. That's it.
Yep. Totally.
In fact, my view, I think it's false because I think naturalism is true.
Right.
Yeah, because they had a. Are you familiar with Peter Atkins? He's like a famous scientist or something.
Not off the top of my head.
It sounds
I don't know
familiar.
I don't know what it matters. So
Yeah, so they asked him if God spoke to you and said, "Peter, believe in me," would you believe in him? And he said that, "I think I'm hallucinating or having a dream." So the point is, if you don't want,
would
not
you
Peter
believe
Atkins,
in that
though.
God? Hold up. Ali, if you're a Muslim, if you really are, now I'm not going to takfir you, okay? That's not my place. I am sure not a scholar. But my goodness, as a Muslim, if you heard the voice of Allah directly to you, are you telling me you would accept that is Allah speaking to you?
of course I would. Number one, number two, I don't need.
Would? Hold up. You would? That is a massive, massive admission if you just said that as a believing Muslim. I want to make sure to be extra clear. If you, as a Muslim, not the Prophet Muhammad, but if you as a Muslim received words from Allah directly, you would accept that it is Allah directly.
I don't need that.
No. I'm not asking if you need it or not. This is really crucial. I think you realize the mistake you just made. So once again, let's be clear. If you heard Allah speaking to you directly as a believing, faithful Muslim, as a follower of the Quran, would you accept that is Allah speaking to you directly? Yes or no?
Yeah, well, I mean, in this world, Allah doesn't speak to people.
Boom. There you go. I muted you, Ali. And the reason I wanted you to admit that is because the thing you just said about Peter Atkins, whether it's true or not, doesn't even matter anymore. Because you agree with Peter. You agree with Peter just the same as JMike and I do. That if we thought for a moment we were hearing the direct words of God, the direct words of Allah, then absolutely not. Absolutely not. None of us would agree with Peter. So that point doesn't hold any weight because we're all on the same boat there. If on the other hand, though, and I've unmuted you again because I'm going to shut up in just a second. If on the other hand, you had said that you had heard directly from Allah, brother, you would have reformed yourself out of Islam. That is true. You know that, right?
It's really an irrelevant argument because I don't.
No, it sure isn't. No, it sure freaking isn't, man.
Oh, man.
Because by your understanding of what the actual God is, not some bullshit that people made up, not some corrupted ass ancient Jewish text that got flipped around by pagans for years. What your belief actually is that Allah does not directly talk to people. And so you bringing up this point that, oh, you atheists just wouldn't believe if God just talked to you directly. You don't believe it either. So saying it makes no sense. It holds no weight. You agree with us. All we're asking is, Why are you inconsistent? Why do you not hold that exact same standard? The question you posed to JMike and I earlier, why do you not hold that exact same standard when it comes to the Prophet Muhammad?
Okay, number one, am I muted or did you unmute me?
Oh, no, you're talking. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. What I said, you misquoted me. I said Allah doesn't speak to normal average humans like me. Not that he's incapable of. He spoke to Moses and spoke to the Prophet Muhammad. Say it again.
I said, I understand. But the argument that you brought up, the anecdote that you brought up, whether true or not, I'm just accepting. Peter Atkins said, I wouldn't believe it if I thought God was talking to me directly. And you don't disagree with that statement because unless you're claiming Peter Atkins or somebody else you might know colloquially is a prophet of God, ain't none of them getting direct messages from him. Right? We're all on the same page there.
It's sophistry what you're doing. You're
I don't think so. Ali, I got you muted. And the reason I got you muted is because I don't know that you've actually been followed.
That was the best answer.
So I am going to let you go. And the reason I'm going to let you go is because I really, really want you to go back and watch all this again. Because I think right there, when you brought this up, and I didn't ask you to, I didn't tell you bring up some story about some dude who claims he wouldn't believe it if he started hearing voices in his head. I didn't bring that up. You did. Okay. I didn't level the accusation about inconsistent with my methodology. You did. Okay. You brought up both of those accusations and you pointed at JMike and I and you said, ha, 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 shame on you. And all I'm doing is I think between the three of us, you're the only one that's employing those problems. So I'm going to let you go. But please, seriously, listen back to that. Listen back to that. It actually is a really big deal. It's a really, really big deal about saying that you got direct revelation from Allah. So, anywho.
Secular.
Yeah.
That was good for me. Was it good for you?
Oh yeah, man. I feel great. I feel like light now. Like all this stress has gone away. Like I just watched an episode of Secular Sexuality and took Christie's advice. That's what I feel like. But again, before the wonderful producer and crew of this show realize it's always a bad idea to have me on, I'm gonna read some super chats because we've got a bunch. X Million sent us $10 and said the Amalekite cows were mooing to the wrong god, obviously. Which, I mean, yeah, that makes total sense. Those heathen cows. Everybody knows that. Actually, I'm pretty sure all cows are Hindu. I could be wrong on that, but whatever. Anywho, Lightslinger42 sent us $1.99 with no message, but then sent another $1.99 and said, well, I guess since I'm John, click. Good. At least we got one. We got one like out of that, so that's good. I'm glad. I'm surprised there aren't more Johns watching, though. I feel like there's at least a few. We've also got $4.99 from our wonderful, incredible, always amazing. Oh no, it's Jimmy Jr. Yeah, he's a host on Talk Heathen. No, I love Jimmy Jr. Jimmy and Richard Gilliver were on this morning. You definitely want to go watch that if you missed it. But Jimmy sent us $4.99 saying, I don't like JMike and Secular Rarity because they're always talking about their hair, and hair loss is not a joke. And I agree, Jimmy. And what I would suggest for me personally is I would do maybe 32 Hail Marys, light a couple candles, pray about it. If it doesn't happen, though, it's because God doesn't want it. So
I got to spend a little time with Jimmy, not as much as I'd like to, but he is so funny. He is so funny.
Oh yeah, and I love seeing him. I love seeing him on the shows. I always think he does such a great job. Let's see. We've got couple more real quick. Halo Master 1243 has been a member for 2 months, sending us $2 alleged money. It's Canadian, so we're not positive, but saying you're a fantastic host, SR. Love it when you're on. Thank you so much, Halo Master. I'm sorry I made fun of your currency. I should have maybe read that before I did that, but hey, hindsight. Patrick Erickson is a new member, and I think that's Swedish krona, although for some reason yeah, I think it's Swedish. I don't know, but it's 20 in whatever currency, and it just says, "I just want to be seen. That's all." Well, I can tell you right here, right now, Patrick, I see you, and that's not because I'm hacking into your webcam or anything. It's just that's a. Anyway, sorry about that.
John,
That
the atheist John you talked to earlier, just got even more freaked out.
Yes, I know, right? He's like, "Oh my God, maybe he did see me. This is weird." No, I can assure you guys, without this wonderful crew here, I would definitely not be able to do this because I don't know really anything about computers. And finally, before we go to this other call, we've got Chris Carrillo is a new member, $5, saying, JMike, could you explain your position on Gnostic atheism and agnostic atheism?
That's a good question. I used to use the term agnostic atheist to describe myself, but I no longer do. But that doesn't mean like I default to Gnostic atheism. I have kind of like an issue with that characterization. I don't think like there's a wrong way to use words or something. It's just not the way that I express my view. So, because like I think the way that I'm hearing people when they express it, and this is the way that I thought of it as well, was talking about knowledge and then dealing with certainty. Like you're certain, Gnostic atheist is certain that God doesn't exist. My concept of knowledge, certainty is just not part of that. I actually think that's like a confusion. That again, there's no like one, we don't have like an extensive philosophical analysis of knowledge. So no one's like, analytic philosophy has failed at, defining that. It's not like, oh, there's the definition, let me grab it before it goes away, So there's a lot of issues in that department. But the way that I use knowledge doesn't have to do anything with certainty, right? I'm talking about, when I'm talking about my atheism, I'm talking about a level of credence level on my belief, right? I'm taking atheism as a belief proposition, or just not believing that God exists. And so when I call myself an atheist, I don't use the Gnostic qualifier. I just say I'm an atheist, and by that I mean I think that gods do not exist. And one reason is I'm a naturalist. I think that there's better, kind of what I was going on with Ali. I think that there's a worldview comparison to be done on the data that you agree with the theist, and every single time the theist is making more unnecessary commitments to explain the data. And so you just shave all that nonsense off and you're left with naturalism, from my view. But I don't like the Gnostic connotation because that's like claiming you're certain. And I don't put certainty into a lot of my belief states. Like I believe God does not exist, and I have confidence. If we talked about credence, I would say my credence is like 1 minus epsilon. It's very close to 1 or 100 or however you want to calculate the credence. But that doesn't mean that I'm absolutely certain, because I just don't buy into that project of absolute certainty. I love science, and I don't think science is in the project of absolute certainty. And so I think I meld that into kind of my own view on beliefs, as opposed to being like, oh, that's 100% true, and I know it. I just rather say, yeah, my credence on that proposition is higher than, the negation of that proposition. I hope that makes sense.
I thought that was great. I think that was great. And if y'all ever need, a good explanation of that for somebody, just know that the ACA does clips of these shows and posts them regularly throughout the week. So I'm sure that will probably be a clip, because that was a pretty good explanation, pretty succinct.
Let me say, no one is using terms wrong or incorrectly, or that you should revise your view.
That's always the
frustrating.
Yeah. That's always the frustrating thing. It's like, it's possible. I know this is mind blowing, y'all. It is possible for both of us to regularly use a slightly different definition of the exact same word and just tell the other person in the conversation, this is what I'm using this to mean, and then have a conversation. It's amazing that words can be polysemous, almost like they've always
not prescriptive.
Yeah, it's weird. It's crazy. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we're the ones that are off base.
It's just for me to be, for my own sake, to be cleaner in my own position. I'm a naturalist and I'm an atheist. I don't believe gods exist, but I go further. I think gods do not exist, and my credence level on naturalism is very high. That's basically the gist of it.
Yep. I love it. And we did get 2 more super chats, and I know I said I was going to go to the calls. Callers, hang on for us. We are going to grab you all. I know you can hear me right now, so just hang on for us. We will be right there. But a couple of this one's kind of funny, and so I wanted to say it, soon after the other one. And then we got a question for you, JMike. But Arsenic 1987 sent what I know for a fact are Norwegian krona. 20 of them, and said much better than Swedish krona, which now does reinforce my belief that it was Swedish krona. I'm not taking a view on whether or not Norwegian or Swedish krona are better. I'm just saying that's what the super chat says. So, and then there is something here that is in Norwegian, and so I am obligated to read it, which is Hilsen Snila Brar. Fuck me. I don't know what the fuck it is. I don't know what I said. So let's hope it's not a slur. But yeah, if you want me to poorly read other languages, please send it a super chat and I'll do it. Finally, this question, and then we will grab you callers. Hang for us. Hang Fashi member for 1 month sent us $10 and said, JMike, been using your syllogism. P1, God can instantiate any world. P2, a world where God is free, a world where good is freely done, like it's Mjolnir. Oh, Mjolnir on a Jotun's skull. It took me a second to read this. The hammer Thor. Got anything like that for naturalism versus supernatural? That was a lot for me. Sorry, guys.
I hope when I answer, I'm understanding what's being asked. Just kind of like a justification over naturalism over the supernatural, or like why we should believe that. For people that might not understand the argument I'm talking about, off the top of my head, it's like God is a being that can instantiate any logically or metaphysically possible state of affairs. A world where agents freely do good is a logical or metaphysical, a possible state of affairs. And so therefore God can instantiate a world where agents freely do the good, or, whatever. However you want to word it, there's many ways you can word it. So if anyone's interested in that, I guess you go back and look at some of the old videos. But on this naturalism versus supernaturalism, it's kind of just going to be in the same ballpark. Or if you're a non-naturalist, because there are non-naturalist atheists, like Mike Humer thinks that souls exist, but he thinks gods do not exist. So, go figure that one out. It's hard for me to figure out as well. I think the best thing there is that you're not going to give. So like the first argument that we were talking about is something that Christians likely will accept, or hopefully, right? You want it to be something where it's like, look, you think God can instantiate any logically possible state of affairs? Yeah, he's omnipotent. Okay, premise 2, like, there's a world where agents can freely do good always. They might be skeptical, and you just run them through like, hey, for every time you've ever sinned, you could have done good, right? So it was available to you for all of your actions to have never sinned and just always done the good freely. So it seems possible, right? Yeah, it does. Great. So by your own lights, here we get this conclusion. Now on this side, it's a little hard to do that because you're talking about two like just completely different worldviews, and if I'm going to support naturalism, I can't really say very much about the supernaturalist stuff. What I have to do is find something we agree about. Okay, we agree there's a beginning of the universe. We agree that, let's say time starts at t equals 0 and it's not infinite into the past. Okay, well, my causal reality starts at t equals 0, but you have extra stuff prior to that, right? So you have to now introduce this foreign concept, this foreign idea of supernatural, which we're not really sure what even is, to explain this thing that goes fully explained in my view. Why does t equals 0 exist? Because it has to. Causal reality in all of the possible worlds that it could be, according to me, it has to start there. All possible worlds share that one point, right? They could diverge in different ways, but they all share that one point. If you have some other supernatural stuff that's shared there, prior to that, that's one more commitment I don't have. And I'm sitting there going, what explanatory virtue am I getting out? You paid a high cost, but you walked out the store and it seemed like you didn't get any product out of it, right? Whereas like I paid less of a cost and I got my groceries and I'm walking out and I explained all the data. So to me, that's the best kind of argument for these positions is you're going to have to compare the views and see which one makes more commitments and which one makes least commitments and it does a better job at explaining the data. There's going to be a trade-off there.
Yeah. And again, this is, I know I a little snarky when I responded to our caller earlier asking us, but truly, this is the process you all use in every other aspect of your life. You just don't hardcore think about it to this level because nobody's doing freaking call-in shows about bowling balls and refrigerators and stuff like it, because people aren't trying to break down the wall of separation of church and state with that shit, but they are when it comes to God. So it's like, if you just sat down and thought about it for a second, you'd be like, why do I actually accept my car is outside? Oh, because it has less assumptions and explains all the data. And it's like, yeah, cool. There you go. Done. Easy.
I'm glad you kind of said this point, because I was like driving in the car earlier and I was like, I thought this example in my head. I was getting food and I was like, I don't know if I want to say this because this could be like really dumb or I just look stupid for having this thought, but it just came into my head. I was thinking like, if I saw some guy walking down the street, it was just like, blah, 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 like, you know, just crazy, like just coming at me. And I made this like form this kind of idea that he was sent from aliens, right? Like he's an alien. He's been sent from alien. Like all of our prior, like the prior probability there is like, it's like zero because we have no experience of any of that. Right. But I have a lot of experience of like drunk, drugged out people. Right. And you could sit there and give this Bayesian, Bayes theorem, this Bayesian like mathematical analysis on the prior probability that are from aliens. You could do that, but we all do this kind of like second nature in a way where it's like, yeah, the prior probability that you're lying to me is just not very high because you tell the truth to me a lot and I see that, whatever, or the probability that you're telling the truth is low because you lie to me all the time.
Yes.
We do this all the time. We just don't break it down into this like, oh, I'm comparing this kind of view to this view and assessing the prior probability or assessing the commitments. It's a lot of the time it's just your friend comes up to you and lies to you and you're like, yeah, all those kind of commitments that are in that view is just so far-fetched. I could never believe that. It just comes for free a lot of the times.
Yep. And that was a good example. Somebody like running at you, acting wild. And it's like, it could be that they were sent from aliens, but how come none of us really entertain that theory? Exactly. And it's because of exactly what you just said. So yeah, I totally agree, man. I agree. And, we haven't gotten a call pushing back on Dr. Malpass's argument. So far it must be true because nobody has called in and Christianity must be false. I just think that's how logical arguments work. Yep. But we're gonna grab some other calls because we have a good couple of calls here. And I think a few of them, not a few of them, every single one of them is going to be amazing. And we are going to go out to New Jersey first, going to talk with Abe. He, him, has a question about God being all knowing and free at the same time. Well, hey, Abe, what you got for us?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sorry, I was delayed.
First of all, I'd like to tell everybody, listening and watching to, of course, like and subscribe.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah, Abe. You've already got an extra minute of airtime for that. Keep it up, brother.
All right, great. So it says in the Bible that God is all-knowing and all-powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So God,
that's the takeaway, at least.
Right. So God being all-powerful means that God has free will. So if God has free will, God can't be all-knowing and have free will at the same time. Because if he already knows what's going to happen, then he doesn't have a choice. And if he changes his mind, then he already knows that he's going to change his mind. So what's your opinion on that argument?
Yeah, I think in general this idea of omniscience and having the ability to really choose in the meaningful sense that people are talking about when they talk about free will, I don't think that they work together. This idea of like, God knows what you would do, and I think it's Molinism is that kind of like middle ground thing. That a lot of
God knows what like circumstances you'd be placed in, which just gives antecedents that determine the thing you would. I know
it feels. I'm pretty with you on this, Abe. It feels like these ideas clash with each other pretty hard. At the very least, and this depends, of course, on the type of individual that you're speaking with. I've had these conversations and they've gone, a couple of ways because, not everybody views not everybody has the same definition of a deity, right? Even from the Bible. And so I've asked Christians before, like, hey, is there anything that restricts God from doing an action, right? And they're like, no, God can freaking do anything. God is, all powerful, right? And I go, cool. Can God do something logically contradictory, right? And if they say yes, then they kind of have to deal with the fact that there is at least something that seems to be, controlling God. God is subject to the laws of logic, or God must adhere to the laws of logic. I literally talked with a guy for 10 minutes where I just asked the exact same question, just changed the word over and over and over until finally he was like, yeah, okay, that might be an issue. If they say that God can do illogical things, the first thing I would do is I would probably point them towards a handful of different apologists and be like, hey, the vast majority of people in this space don't accept that. They have a different answer for it, and, strengthen your argument. Because if God can do illogical things, then it just kind of throws out the whole conversation, because God can always do, God can break the rules of non-contradiction and identity. So how the fuck do we have this conversation about something that both is and is not itself? Like,
I've had those conversations. They're called dialetheists, or people that hold to that there are some true contradictions. It's called dialetheism.
That's fascinating.
And there's people like Graham Priest, who's a philosopher. He's not a Christian. He's not a theist, I don't think, but he thinks that there are true contradictions, like the liar's paradox, for example. And so if you meet a Christian that just bites the bullet on dialetheism, well, then one, I'm just really confused about the view, and all sorts of Trinity starts to make a whole hell of a lot more sense. It still doesn't make sense, but it's like, okay, you concede my issues, but you embrace them. Okay, that's great. Right. One thing to be said about this, Abe, there's one thing to be careful on. I don't think it depends on how you word the argument. If you go like really into it and you're like, God's a necessary being and necessarily he knows this thing, you have a worry about what's called I think it's called a modal shift fallacy, where you shift one of the operators like necessity over where it's not really, doesn't formally kind of translate that way. So there's a worry there. I don't think a lot of people are putting these like really robust arguments in that way. So that's one thing you probably just don't have to worry about. But two, there's different notions of omniscience. And I don't know if a lot of people know this or if they get into the weeds on this, but Abe, are you familiar with the concept called open theism?
No.
Yeah, so you might have a worry about this, presenting this argument to a theist who openly and gladly calls themselves, like I have a friend named Fan. He's an open theist. And so what they believe is that God is omniscient. But in the future, actions like Mike will eat a sandwich, or God will smite whoever, or tell Saul to go, kill a bunch of infants. When you talk about those propositions in the future, they're not actually propositional. They can't be true or false. They're not bivalent, right? They're not even something that could be true or false. So knowing the future isn't a propositional attitude you can take. It's not something that you could know, right? And so God is, under their view, omniscient. He knows all true propositions, but he doesn't know the future because the future is unknowable, right? Even for God. And so you're going to have to worry about that type of response for some people who hold to that. Sorry?
I said, but if God's outside of space and time, then he knows everything that already happened and everything that will happen. I would say.
Well, I'm trying to put my theist hat on and what a theist might say to you. And if you get an open theist, they're going to be like, well, look, God doesn't know what he will do at that point. But I think one thing to focus on is looking at the scripture and the text. And it's like, well, do you really believe this? Like, I'm wondering if open theism is like scriptural or even, has a place in your theology, given that there's points in the text you can point out where God like knows something will happen in the future and then he's right about it. Right. So there is that worry, or like, hey, only the Father, knows the time, right? That's, I think, was that Matthew or something. And that's a future event, and God knows the future event. So there's a worry there. But I mean, most theists that you run into aren't probably going to hold that view. And if they do, I think that there's maybe some theological or scriptural concerns, you can point their way. But yeah, I would just that's really all I have to offer. Like, I personally think that there's an issue with what you're bringing up, right? Or like my free will. But when you get an open theist, or you get these people that are, you know, they're very active in the scene of trying to how to figure this out and get rid of the problem, you're going to run into these kinds of people, Molinists and open theists and stuff like that.
So I asked a theist about it, and he said, we just don't understand, which I really hate that. Why would they believe in it if they don't understand?
You'll get that most of the time.
Not the best answer, but
0.1% of the time, if you go around doing this, you'll find somebody who's like looked into open theism, right? It's like not going to happen for most people. But if you get into the circles that I get into, like online debating, outside of just like, you know, Facebook stuff or your friends, you're going to run into a lot more philosophically minded theists, and they're going to cling to that shit for dear life. Like, they're going to cling on to that shit for dear life. And it's really good to know things when they tell you, oh, well, I'm a Molinist. It's really good to know, oh, well, what do you think about the grounding problem of Molinism, right? Or the grounding objection to Molinism? How do you get around that? It's good to know that stuff, because it's like, you know, you have 40 chess on the stuff that they're like really trying to make the, you know, puzzles fit in a way, if that makes sense. But I'm probably going longer than I should, because this is probably like 0.1% of the people you'll ever talk to.
I think it was really good. I think it clarified some stuff, and hopefully it did for you, Abe.
Another question I have for you guys is totally random, but I was just curious, what is your opinion on veganism? Are you guys vegan?
You're trying to throw grenades before you leave.
You're gonna divide the audience.
I'll let JMike give his answer real quick, and then yeah.
How great! I'm so happy I get to go first. So my best friends that I met online, actually, they become like my best friends, and one of them lives really close to me. So unfortunately, I bailed on him yesterday because I had some plans. I'm poor at planning things, but you know, he's a vegan, and pretty much everybody, like, it's, you know, two of his friends that I met on there, they came up from Florida, and we all hung out, and they're all vegans. I'm the only one not a vegan. My view on veganism, I guess, is pretty simple. I'm an anti-realist with morality, so like, I think there are moral facts, but they're indexed to what I think, right? A moral fact is something like JMike thinks that murdering babies is wrong, right? That's a moral fact. It's indexed to me. That's what I think. And in my view, I think it is immoral, by my own lights, to slaughter animals in the millions and consume them and use their products. Am I a vegan? No. Am I inconsistent with my own moral system? Yes. Right. I kind of just feel that I've been so conditioned on this that it's really hard for me. I don't eat a burger and feel bad about it. If I reflect on it, I can, but there's something there with me that's just doesn't move me over the kind of the needle, so to speak. And my buddy Abe-NJ actually challenged me. He's like, if you're not vegan within 2 weeks, I'm challenging you to a debate on like a really high debate platform so I can destroy you on veganism. And I'm like, well, that'll be an easy debate, because I'll just come in there and say I lose. You know? So, by my own lights. But yeah, I tend to argue against non-vegans, even though I'm not a vegan. So
yeah, and I am not a vegan myself. I think there are a lot of really good arguments for the reduction of harming of animals. I've actually talked about this just kind of in my personal life for a really long time, even before I ever engaged in like this type of stuff online and, you know, listened to vegan debates and all that jazz. So I've you know, talked about animal welfare in general. I think one of the issues that I often have with veganism in the actual conception itself is I have heard many vegans who use the definition of veganism to mean the reduction of animal suffering as is practicable, as is most practicable, basically. So what that means to me is that there can be two individuals who very much agree that we should reduce animal harm, and one of those individuals being totally a vegan, absolutely eschews all animal products ever, and the other person who very much is following the tenets of veganism, so to speak, of veganism, eats cows regularly and slaughters them personally. Both of those people under that definition are actually vegans. They very much could be. And I think that's problematic if you have an idea that in and of itself can actually lead to contradictory conclusions like that. So again, that's a really nitpicky problem. I think in general, I think probably 90 some odd % of the arguments from the vegan side are things that I'm totally on board with. You know, you're never going to find me arguing for, what do you call them? Like factory farms and stuff, right? CAFOs and stuff. Like never, not good. Like the lakes of pig shit in North Carolina, bad. I am not a fan of that. You know, just killing animals just for the sake of it, just for the funsies. Like, no, absolutely horrible, horrible, horrible. Should we not eat honey because it's immoral? That's a bit tougher one for me, for sure.
As somebody who's like willing, just straight openly saying I'm inconsistent with my own view here.
Yeah.
The honey thing is something I would just like, come on, are you serious?
Right. That's how I feel. Now, but in fairness, there have been a good handful of folks, you know, well-known, you know, activists or thinkers in the space that have gone, you know, through weeks and weeks of back and forth with themselves about whether or not they should use certain medication like, you know, ibuprofen or something because of the negative harm that the creation of that medicine had on animals, you know? So like these are things in that space. I kind of agree with you there, JMike. I feel like if we're arguing about the eating of the honey thing, I feel like maybe we're missing the forest through the trees there, but yeah.
Scientists just figure this out, get lab meat cheap and like,
man, right though?
I'll be on board.
Like, how cool would that freaking be? You know, seriously, I am so excited to see more and more lab grown meat stuff because I really do think that takes so much of this out of the playing field now.
I agree with you. I mean, look, I got an Impossible Burger today.
Hi, there you go.
No joke. I got one.
There you go.
And I will prefer to get one if the option's there.
Yeah.
And the more these conversations with people, I'm like, all right, let me just start, even if I don't really like feel like I care that much, let me just start doing this because I know on reflection I will. And so let's try it. But God, if we just had lab meat, it would just solve so much crap for me if it was cheap and good. And I'm like, I don't got a lot of money, so you know what I mean.
And that's the thing. It's the cheat. It's the availability factor, right? And the taste. The taste is a massive issue for people in this conversation. And like, if you really do believe that we cannot make lab grown meat taste fucking incredible, then oh my gosh, you have not been paying attention to the foods around the world for all of human history. There have been parts of society that have been actively eating rancid fish for just generations. Like, do you know what scrapple is? Do you know what scrapple is? I am a Southern boy to my core, and I'm telling you, go look that shit up and tell me that we can't figure out a way to make absolutely anything delicious and edible, because that is what we did with that. But Abe, I know we just kind of rambled there at the end. You threw it. You lobbed a bomb. You lobbed a bomb for us, and now we're going to receive probably very angry phone calls because JMike and I are perpetuating the torture of animals or giving credence to vegans. I don't know.
Both sides of the field.
That's what I feel. I feel like we did a good job. You know, I feel like we did.
I'm good. I tried to appease everybody.
That's right. That's what we do. Any other thoughts for us, Abe?
You know, I myself am not vegan, and I'm about to go eat some chicken, but I have one more thought.
All right, one more.
So they say that we're paying people to kill animals, but we're not. We're paying people to give us the animals they already killed. So it's not like we're actually killing animals. They're already dead. They already got the meat, so we're just taking advantage of that.
Yeah, and again, this isn't necessarily my stance, but I would bet the argument back to that would be something along the lines of, but if you aren't paying for the meat product, the end result of that death, then the farmer's incentive to slaughter the animals to begin with wouldn't be there, so they wouldn't slaughter them. It's a very long conversation for sure, Abe. But
it's not an easy one to win. Like,
it
trust
isn't.
me, I've tried. I've tried to do the name the trait stuff, and I've just
that one's real tough. That one's really, really tough. Other than just being selfish and just being like, I'm anthropocentric. What can I say? I value humans over snails.
Species essentialism.
That's right. Species essentialism, baby. That's all we can do. But Abe, thank you so freaking much. That was a great call. I really enjoyed that. And possibly one of the first times in a while that we've talked about veganism on this show that didn't result in us calling each other mean names. So thanks so much, Abe, and we're going to let you go. And we hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. I don't know.
Can you prove to me that we didn't call names?
You know what?
Even if you show me this video, I could say that you doctored it.
I'm not 100% certain, JMike. I'm just not. But if you can provide me with a sound and valid deductive argument, then I'd be forced to believe it. So
what's funny though is like I could just give you or anybody this like comparison on the two, call them theories, not scientific, and it'd be very clear to which one of us is ridiculous and which one is not ridiculous. Like you doctored the videos, and it's like, no, I think I'll take one less commitment, and explain the data. But that's the theme for the show: make less commitments and explain all the data. And guess what? You shave God off in the process.
Damn it, we need that. Damn it, we need that on a shirt. That's good. That is
a big
good.
Shirt.
That is good. Which is a good reminder and segue into telling you all that there is just a plethora of really cool ACA merch that you can get just all over the web. But I'm actually not going to tell you how directly to get to it today, because I want you to do some work. You should have to try for it a little. Now, I think it's really easy. It's just like ACA.com merch. Like, yeah, look, see, really, really super easy. See, look at that. tiny.cc/merch ACA. Yeah, made it easy for you. And if you leave here tonight and you think, I haven't gotten enough, I need more ACA content 24/7. Well, the good news is we've already taken care of it, because we got two of them. 2 24/7 live streams, AXP TV, giving you a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from over 26 full years without evidence of God on the Atheist Experience. That's right. And we've also got Heathen TV, which gives you all the greatest clips from Talk Heathen. So go watch or just listen to it in the background while you do other fun things. tiny.cc/AXPTV and tiny.cc/Heathen TV. And of course, we could not possibly go unless we give a massive.
Oh, let me give a drum roll.
A shout out. Give us that drum roll. Oh, the crew. Where's our wonderful crew? Look at them. They are amazing. Absolutely incredible. Constantly disappointed in JMike and I, but they still come week after week and put on this show and do all the things that JMike and I are unable to do, because we spend so much time worrying about really nuanced philosophical talks. So
like Greg actually went on location with me to the plains. Just we don't want to disclose the location. It's area.
For the dinosaur.
And he did this photo shoot, so he doubles as like a photographer.
Yeah.
And
and that's why you can see the kind of faraway look in Mike's eye in that picture. He's looking back to the city that they just left from. So it was a really beautiful time. And if you want to hear more of that story, you're just going to have to find out when Mike's on again and watch that episode of AXP. And we are going to
now I got to come up with lore.
Yeah, right. I know. I just gave you so much homework, and I'm so sorry. But I was already halfway through the sentence before I realized what I was telling you. But JMike, are you able to hang out in the after show, or you running off? I know I will be
I
there.
have mine is contingent on a text message that I either got or did not get. And
Yeah, so we will find that out. So basically, the after show is a Schrodinger's after show right now. JMike both is and is not there currently, and the only way you'll know for sure is if you go join the after show on tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And
the text has been sent and has not been sent.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. It is. We've hit a lot of stuff. We've hit a lot of stuff today. And I just want to remind everybody that the prompt for this week that you need to put in the comment section below the video. Patrick, John, below the video, okay? Not in the live chat, okay? Below the video, okay? I think they're on board.
John gets three. John gets 3 shout outs.
He did. He got it. He got them all. Patrick got 2. That, I don't know. We're gonna keep adding them up. Just clip all of this, post it somewhere. I don't know. But the prompt is name a time that God had no chill. So get your answers below the video, and yours might be picked and read out at the beginning of next week's episode. JMike, it is always so much fun, man. I'm always glad to be on the show with you. We had some good times, and we got to talk some philosophy and stuff. And we didn't get any good justification for God. Did you get any? Did I miss it? Or
I don't know if you're talking to me, because I was told I don't exist.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Good point. So yeah, and since I can't prove that you exist, and I actually can't prove that any of the audience exists, what I'm going to say is, SR, thank you so much for being here today. Or if you're watching this in the future on the replay, Secular Rarity, we really appreciate you being here. And SR, if you're not busy, next week 4:30 p.m. Central Time, why not come back and hang out with all of yourself again? So goodbye to all the secular rarities out there. We'll see you next week.
Shout out to RC Blazer. You are right. No justification found this week.
That's right.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to stop questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.